My name is DougMarcaida. I was born and raised in the Philippines. I migrated to the US when I was 18. Joined the Air Force, stayed in it for 8 years, became a respiratory therapist. But all the while, I always trained in the Filipino martial arts. And that got me to knife designing, that got me to teaching the Filipino martial arts as a hobby, then became a passion, then became a job. And I found my way to being a judge in Fortune Fire. I grew up in Manila. But I did a lot of my vacations for summer and time and Christmas in Cebu, because my mom's from Cebu. And that is my upbringing. I had a very bad conduct growing up. I was an angry kid because of my parents split up. But learning from that, I was able to learn a lot of lessons about life in the Philippines and how it has actually strengthened me through all the adversities over there to the life I live today here in the United States.
That's it. So I go check one, and I want you to hit it where.
So the one thing that I'm guilty of growing up in the Philippines is called colonial mentality. And what colonial mentality is the colonials have pretty much taught the natives of that land that they are second-class citizens, that everything else outside that country is much better, whether it was colonized by the Spaniards, the Americans during their occupation, same with the Japanese occupation. So growing up in the Philippines, I always thought the West was where it was. I grew up thinking that, and then eventually I migrated to the West, being the US. That kind of mentality makes you ashamed of where you come from. Everything that I did in the Philippines was more about learning karate or taekwondo or the other martial arts that were more popular. I would even study our own because I thought that's for the masses. You know, that's Filipino martial arts, only criminals use that, it's weapon-based, and I had a fear of weapons. But it wasn't until I migrated to the US and I joined the military that I discovered the Filipino martial arts known as Kali, when the Philippines was known as Arnis and Eskrima. But when it was presented in a different way, so there's still a colonial mentality because it's different. It was, it's Kali, it's the Filipino martial arts developed in the US. Doesn't matter. But once I got into it, I go, I gotta learn more about my culture. My gosh, this is something, all this time I grew up in the Philippines, I could have been learning this. So I fell in love with the art. I went back to the Philippines, I started studying from different masters, different systems, and it just gave me back my sense of my identity that I lost as a Filipino. And then moving to the States, you find out that the Filipino presence in this culture that makes up this country is strong. We are part of this. We've been here since the 1500s, when you really look back at the history. So we helped build this country or be part of it. I felt that my identity of finding Filipino martial arts gave me that back, that I can be a proud Filipino even though I am an American. Because we make up this country. It's a multicultural country. So I'd say Filipino martial arts definitely brought me back and gave me back my identity.
So the motion is like close quarter hitting, back fist, 1 o'clock.
So I started in a close quarter system, PD Tertia, when I started. And then I started, within that system, I wanted to learn more. And I started studying Mavic Air, Kali de Leon, because I was really well-rounded in different arts, because I was really hungry for this art. Marcaida Kali pretty much was an accident. What happened was I started getting popular with teaching Filipino martial arts and doing my seminars, that my hosts were starting to put a name to it, because it was Rochester Kali first. It was just Rochester where I was from teaching Kali, and it was just regular Kali to be generic. I didn't want to claim anything because it's my passion. Claiming a name like I was Pequidi system or Kali de Leon or San Miguel Eskrima or Barako Batangueño or Doce Pares, all these different systems. I started to see that there was an infighting about that. I didn't want to be part of any of that because it's my passion. I just want to train. I just want to have fun with it. Marcaida Kali was just putting a name to it by the hosts of those seminars because they were using it for commerce. They go, yeah, I know Rochester Kali is not really known, but you're going to call it Kali, Doug, or Filipino martial arts. It's too generic. We like to put your name to it. So Marcaida Kali actually showed up as a mistake. I latched onto it, and eventually what I did was, it's my expression of all the things that I've learned, the things that work for me together. Is it finite? No. It's actually growing because Marcaida Kali is just an idea that it's Filipino martial arts, but it can be anything that you want it. As a matter of fact, if my system were to continue on the way it is with the curriculum and everything else, the final test that you will have is that you have to create your own system and you have to name it anything that you want other than Marcaida Kali. And the reason for that is because as a martial artist journey is really individual. It's an individual thing. People say, I carry on my teacher's system and everything. That's not true, because everyone will always put a piece of them in there. You will always mix it in with whatever that you've learned that works for you. So shouldn't you call it your name? And I told my students, you need to call it whatever you want later on, your own name and everything, because I don't want you to carry my name. No, it wasn't that. It was really stand up and be counted. Because it is a student who takes the knowledge given to them, the guidance given to them by their teacher, but they're the ones who train it. They're the ones who uplift it. They're the ones who put it there. So take a bow, put your name to it. And then let your students also, at the time when the time comes, let them take a bow. Let them shine for taking your art, your knowledge, taking it to the next level, and then adding their piece to it. Now it's theirs.
That's rare to hear, because usually people is like because for me, like, I train under Tabuada Balintawak, so Tabuada is Balintawak. But then again, when I went to the Philippines, his friends, Nick Elazar, Nick Balintawak, or Red Balintawak under GM Casio.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's all Balintawak, but they just put their name in front of it.
And I'll guarantee you it's different.
Yeah.
Each instructor that teaches it will have a different interpretation. So one of the things I've learned was in one system, I studied under 6 first-generation instructors. And I noticed that we were studying the same form. I'll give you an example. There was one particular form that we were learning. Everybody knew it, we followed it to a T, but everyone had a different interpretation. And the interpretations were from who they were, what their backgrounds were different. One was a business math going to be, so everything was about numbers and angles and everything. One was a court officer, so everything about the law and very strategic and tactical. And another one was just basically about the art form, and he had a Chinese medicine background and Chinese martial arts background, so he taught it from that point of view. So everybody really had their own take to it. So I go, if everybody is saying that they're carrying on their teacher's name or the system's name, but they're carrying it and teaching it differently, so how is that supposed to be, yeah, guaranteed this is the original? No, they put a piece of them. I always say, give credit to where you came from, but it's okay to also express that this is you. This is your interpretation. And it's also okay for others to take your stuff, do whatever they want with it, and then call it theirs. Because in reality, it really is theirs.
It's also inspiring too, because when people ask me, Jessica, to start your own thing, but I was like, I don't want to disrespect my teacher.
Yeah, but you're not disrespecting them, you're honoring what they taught you. So a lot of times teachers go this, why are you afraid to let them teach what you taught them? Why are you teaching them to begin with, if they can even use it, right? A lot of this is about freeing yourself up. So I teach you knowledge, you gain that, and then all of a sudden you're going to keep it to yourself and you're afraid to share it? Why would you do that to yourself? This is your passion. One of the things I always say, right? I think the purpose of life is we come to this life. We try to find our purpose. Our purposes are whether it's your passion, your job, whatever. And then we find something that we're so excited about. We're going to stick to this. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to do whatever I can. I'm going to try to master it. But once you master it, the next piece is to prepare to share it. Leave it behind so it doesn't die with you. So, is it disrespectful to your teacher to share what they're doing? No, they live through you. And you live through them that you pass it on to. It doesn't die. So by looking at this transformation, the beauty of it is it continues to live. It's a living knowledge because it's continuing to be passed on. Thing is, why put ownership? That's my stuff. No, and be happy with the fact that it keeps on going. Because when you hold it in, it's like holding on to pain or a rock here. I don't want to share it and everything. It's in there. But the minute you go, let it go. Everybody do whatever you want with it. Enjoy it, whatever. If it's terrible, it'll die out. If it continues to be terrible, that's okay. That's not on you. That's on them. That's their story. But you will find other students who do what they do the way you want it. That's their story too. So it's more freeing to just let it go. Holding on to these things is like holding on to your life. You can't hold on to your life. You're going to die. We all will, right? It's a cycle of life. So leave something behind by sharing it. Don't hold on to it.
That's something I've been tussling with as an instructor.
This is your art. This is your passion. Some of the things, it was interesting. A person put this to me, and I like it. He goes, I was not put in this world to carry your name. I am an individual. I will honor and say, I learned it from you. But at the same time, when I teach it to somebody else, a piece of me goes with that. So I'm not going to say it's just him. And it's also unfair to say, oh, this is all them, and then a piece of you is in there, and that piece of you may not be good. So now it goes back to their teacher. Oh, that guy taught me something terrible, when in fact it was your own interpretation that you added in that's terrible, right? So it goes both ways. Is it important? Yes. Is it required? No. There are a lot of martial artists there are very good at the art that they're able to do based on the technicality of this and the forms and everything else. I think by learning the culture, it gives it a soul, if I can say that. I took my students to the Philippines. You know, they were born and raised in the US. I took them to the Philippines because I wanted them to experience the country that it came from, the culture that it came from, so that whatever they're doing, there's more meaning. Oh, I saw how they live, so this kind of makes more sense. I see the food that they eat. This kind of makes sense. I see the camaraderie and the friendship and the hospitality of their culture. Oh, we have the same thing in our classrooms. I mean, to be able to learn the art form and where it comes from and the culture and everything else gives it more substance. Is it required? No, but there's more flavor. There's more meaning to it. If you get to find out a little bit more to the art, it becomes more meaningful to add all that other stuff.
You want to practice this motion, just wrap it around.
So the differences I found with Filipino martial arts taught in the US and in the Philippines, basically, I think a lot of it is structure. Back home, it's something that people do because they love it. It's very hard to do it to make money. In other countries, they use it as a form of making money, right? So they teach it, they do it. And martial arts, period, is very hard to do to make money to begin with, right? But the facilities that you find in other countries are, I think, more comfortable. Like in the Philippines, you'll find their training, or most Filipino martial arts anyway, are backyard instruction, so it's in their house and everything else. What I found is the main difference, I think, is that people are more apt to share their knowledge with each other outside that country. Mixed martial arts is a big thing all over the world. So same thing with mixed martial arts systems within the Filipino martial arts. So you'll have a Filipino martial artist in another part of the country that cross-trains. They do balintawak, pikini, they do 12 pares and all that. For them, it's open. In the Philippines, they're more close-guarded for what they know. I know that when I went to train back home, I have a tattoo of one of the systems in my back. And my brother goes, we're gonna learn in Luneta, we're gonna go there. Put a Band-Aid, because we were wearing tank tops, it was hot over there. Put a Band-Aid over your tattoo. I was like, why? They find out you're from that system, they'll shut down and they won't show you anything. So it was interesting. People wanna keep secrets to that. So it's interesting because teachers back home want new students, they want foreign students. So come over here, I'll show you everything, right? But don't show the other guy. Not knowing that that same student will go back to their country and they'll share it with everybody. That's the difference.
Now, when they ask me, well, what's the difference between this and this? This means you want to fight.
My pet peeves are those know-it-alls. Know-it-all in this particular thing, where they think they have the answer. They have the answer, and the only way that they can defend their answer is by putting everybody else down, called crab mentality. I've seen that. That's my pet peeve, because I know these people speak badly about everybody else, but they don't have an answer. They know how to point out all the problems, but they don't have an answer. And even if they have an answer, that answer only applies to them with their limited knowledge, because they don't know everything. I look at this. One of the things that you learn as a martial artist is respect. So to down everybody and pinpoint and be picky, and you'll say, well, it's the truth. It's not the truth, it's your truth. Everybody has their own truths. Like this is an example. He never got into a fight, he did everything else. Never got into a fight. I think the guy knows what he's doing. Yet you are heralding and rejoicing over this person who's a badass fighter and everything. He probably can't even function properly in society, right? So they look at it without respect. It's a missing thing. I think when people disrespect others to make themselves go above and look good, it's one of my pet peeves. I go, sometimes when you start to point out certain things that people do, you may not know that that's all they have. The Philippines is a third world country. A lot of our instructors over there are not well-to-do. Sometimes all they have are stories. And even if they're stories, they probably captured a goldfish and they say it was a shark. Doesn't matter. To them, it's a shark and it's great for storytelling. Let them have that. Who are you to take that dream away? Why? Because you feel better about yourself? You're a big man now? No, it's just you trying to put down everybody to make yourself feel better. That's my pet peeve. Fortune Fire, basically, they were looking at my YouTube videos. You know, one of the things that I was lucky about in the early years was I had a foresight to celebrate what I love doing. And when I started buying a camcorder, I recorded all my classes and everything. I love to edit because I want to put it out there. My teacher goes, "Oh my gosh, you're giving away secrets." There's no secret with this. You know, that's why with a camcorder, right? The secret is how you train. But I want to celebrate what I'm doing so that people will know what it is that took me away from time with my family, took me away from other hobbies, took me away from all this. This is what I'm celebrating. Here, share it, right? Like I said, as I'm trying to master it, I want to celebrate with everyone by putting it out there. They're mostly music videos and they're not instructions, but that's what I love to do. When Fortune Fire was looking for an end user, they saw my videos and they go, "All right, let's give them a call," and the rest is history. I was able to promote Filipino martial arts because I can be introduced now as a Kali martial artist. In the past, it was just edge weapon specialist. So now it became edge weapon specialist and Kali martial artist, DougMarcaida. And I love that because we did the metrics and we showed that Kali, and the searching for the word Kali started to get popular every time we did that on Google. Now, what people don't realize also is that what I'm doing over there is not Filipino martial arts. I draw from Filipino martial arts in cutting because it's about safety. I need to know how to cut properly, not lose the weapon. I'm always worried about where the blade's going because let's face it, what I'm cutting is not fighting back. So it's not Filipino martial arts. And I can't be fancy with the kind of Filipino martial art moves that I'm doing because I have to be able to replicate it fairly. I have to do it so that I can do it as a judge and not as a martial artist. I started getting into blades and weapon design once I started getting proficient in Filipino martial arts. What had happened was, as part of my training with my students, I started getting this idea of, I wonder if we can design a blade that will do this kind of technique we're doing. Or I wonder if I can design my own knife that copies this. If I want to be able to cut this way, let's design a blade that way. At that time, I was just a Filipino martial artist. I had my small group of students, but I had a connection to a Panday, who's a bladesmith. Panday is bladesmith in Tagalog in the Philippines, who could replicate anything I could do. I had a friend in Hong Kong. We would design blades together, send it to him by email, and he just replicated and sent it to us. So all of a sudden now I'm designing blades for my own group. Then later on, when I started getting into more the professional part of it, training with the military, law enforcement, I started to design specifically for the combat techniques that I was doing. Then I started with fox knife, K-bar, I have helped design with that. And then ever since, I've just been going through that process as a knife designer based on the martial arts that I do. Now I have more knowledge now because of Fortune Fire from the blade maker's point of view, the steels, the designs of the handle and all these other stuff compared to when I was just designing for myself, for my techniques and for my students. I'm at the stage in my life now to where, I talked this about earlier, where you find your purpose in life, you master it, and now I'm in the sharing part. I'm trying to record what I've got. I'm doing seminars now as much as I can to leave behind all the knowledge, ideas and philosophies that I can that have served me so well. Now it's time for others to learn that, just like I learned from my teacher, to serve them very well. It's time for others to shine. And I'm trying to find a way to be able to get it all done in videos, in books, in anything, in all the medias we have, so that we can share it. I mean, I'm in California, and this is one of I think it's one of the best Filipino martial arts schools there are because it's cultural. I mean, it's not just about the art. They talk about the history. They talk about the techniques and the culture, the dances, the games, and everything else. We need more schools like that. So one of the things is I want to support places like this to be able to educate everyone about the art that we so much love. Media-wise, there are some projects that I'm trying to hash out with the connections. And we're networking now. I'm doing podcasts now. I'm trying to get the word out that we are trying to get stories based on Filipino martial arts. We want to get them in print, we want to get them in movies, we want to be able to get them anywhere out there so that people will at least be educated about the art. Filipino martial arts is very present in a lot of movies, you know, but they use the techniques. Born Identity, there was in 300, Blade, so many, because you see the weapons, they see the moves, but it's never about Filipino martial arts. I think it's time that we create a movie that has Filipino martial arts, explains the culture of it, not just techniques. A lot of movies just use the techniques of the knives, but they never talk about who's wielding it, how they wield it, what's the story behind that. I think it's time that we do something like that, and it's in the works. For everyone who wants to find out more about the journey and my Kali life, I call it the Kali life, tune in on forgingthepath.com. That's our website, and anywhere that you do podcasts, if you go Forging the Path. These are stories where I use Filipino martial arts to be able to interview people, where I use Filipino martial arts to find out about people. You see, everybody thinks when you're talking about the Kali life, the Filipino martial arts, it's all within the wielding of the weapon and most. No, it's all up here. Martial arts is life when you try to avoid. When we talk about evading, you know, you can evade questions. When you're talking about force on force, I can be mean with that. When we talk about the harmony or path of least resistance, you can do that in life. I try to really find a lot what I do physically in Filipino martial arts to a mental, emotional thing. I do my morning coffees on Facebook. People don't realize what I do when I talk about the positivity that I choose to focus on, and all these other things are based on my Kali life. It's how Kali has transformed me to control the inner beast that's so ugly within me. That's part of Kali. It's not just about the fighting. The fighting, the training, and everything else, that calms me down. That's the movement, that's the physical part of it. But the mental part, the emotional part, is the exchange of energies. You'll notice when you train, you're training with your classmates, your brothers, your sisters, your family. That's training. Where's the fighting in there? You notice the combat motions and everything else. It's not real fighting. It's not real fighting because we're having fun right now. The real fighting is fighting myself and my ego not to get into fights. Fighting is easy. Getting into fights is easy. Not fighting is the hardest thing because your number one enemy is your ego.